And greetings, everybody. I know it is late at the time I'm doing this. It is about 1:03 in the morning. Fortunately, I do not have to work later. All I have to do is be up for the cable guy. He will be replacing the modem I'm currently using right now with the newer one they've been advertising, or at least one of them. That's going to have 4 ports, so that'll help out in a big way. Also, he's going to look over the main cable box in the living room, see whether or not that needs to be replaced or not. Anyway, though, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to this live stream. Let's go over to what this live stream is about, and that is Disney Afternoon Fight Fest. Yes. In case you don't know what I am talking, excuse me, talking about here, the Disney Afternoon Fight Fest was it was a little bit of I guess you could say a little bit of a parody that was shown, as you can probably tell by the thumbnail. It was a parody, or at least a parody, maybe even a hint of things to come, that the Lonely Island Boys and Disney threw in during the end credits of the recent Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie. And basically, it got, well, and basically what I'm trying to say is it got people talking because a lot of folks were now invested in wondering what would a Fight Fest, basically a Disney Afternoon version of Smash Brothers or multiverses, if you will, or Nickelodeon All Star Brawl. You know, basically, what would a fighting game like that be with Disney Afternoon characters? So it got people wondering, and I figured, you know what? I haven't seen it yet. I even looked here on the Tiermaker.com. I didn't see it, so I decided, why not start one myself? Why not start one myself? And just in case you guys want to know before we get into it, super chats, super stickers are open. It would be appreciated during this live stream if you can do it. And afterwards, when this officially goes live as a regular video, super thanks will also be initiated. Also, you can check me out at Venmo at Brian-Walmer-2 and at Cash App at BWRoses98 to help support me there, and at patreon.com/BWRoses to support me with a $1 or $3 tier. Anyway, like I said, it got people talking and everything because they were like, "Wow, this would be something if it was real." And I think Disney knew what they were doing. I mean, Disney wouldn't have allowed that to be put in there if they didn't know what they were doing. They probably themselves, that being Disney, probably sees the money that could be made um, with something like that. I mean, obviously they're paying attention to what's going on over at the WB and Player One Games and the multiverses game that's coming out or is out, basically the closed alpha and soon to be open beta later on this summer, basically next month. Obviously they're paying attention to what's going on there. They've paid attention to what Nickelodeon did with All Star Brawl. Obviously, they paid attention to Super Smash Brothers because one of the last characters to be a DLC addition to the Smash Brothers lineup was Sora from Kingdom Hearts. So the question is, would Disney do the same for their properties, mostly the one that's been highlighted as of late over the past couple of years, that being the Disney Afternoon? Well, I think if there's a lot of investment in it, if you will, if there's a lot of investment in it, then yeah, I think Disney would probably do it. And again, I don't think they would have put in that little moment in the end credits if they weren't probably teasing something that they might consider doing. But again, that's up to them. For all we can do as fans is imagine and talk about and discuss. exactly what we would like to see, what shows we would like to see represented in a game like this, as well as potentially what characters could be represented along with it, as well as possible DLC that could be added on later on in the future, and so on. And that's kind of what this is here. So as you can tell, right off the bat, we have on top should be in the game right from the start. And what that means is these are shows and characters that should be in the game right from the beginning that you can play, no questions asked, and just go from there. The next category, of course, right here is what should be released as future DLC. In other words, what other shows, characters should be included as DLC downloads. Later on after the game's released, maybe a month or two later on, you get a new character or show added in as a future DLC. Now, below it at number 3 is what should be considered for future DLC. These are shows and characters that happened on the Disney afternoon, but may or may not kind of fall in the category of, potentially being part of this game. And down here below it, we have what shows and characters not to add. There are shows and characters, not many, but there are shows and characters that fans do not want to see in this show, in the game, should it happen, that they want Disney or they would like Disney to avoid completely. And then right here is a very unique situation. What rating should it have? First one shown will be the most likely. So what I mean by that in parentheses, the first one shown should be the most likely is, out of all the ESRB ratings, the one that I'll put on first would probably, in my opinion, and I don't think anybody would disagree, would be the most likely rating that Disney would go with a game like this. So, with that said, just drink some Dr. Pepper there. With that said, down here we have a lot of the shows, and you can tell. Now, you might say to yourself, why are there like doubles and all that? The doubles are used because some of them are going to go into the other categories because they would have characters that might be considered or should be DLC, could be considered DLC, and should be avoided at all cost kind of deal. So, with that said, with that said, you know, what shows basically should be in the game right off the bat? Right off the bat, what shows should be in the game along with their characters? Well, honestly, I think right off the bat we got to go with Rescue Rangers. They're the ones that pretty much put this, or their movie is pretty much the one that put this little teaser in there. So to me, Rescue Rangers, all the characters, Chip, Dale, Monterey Jack, Zipper, Gadget, they should all be in there. They should all be in there front and center. So right off the bat, you got to go with Rescue Rangers. Joining them, of course, I think is the most logical choice for any fighting game. Gargoyles. You got to go with Gargoyles as being in there. I think that's a good choice right off the bat. Next up, I think you have to go with Darkwing Duck. Now I didn't put a copy. Now I didn't download a copy of Darkwing's logo, so maybe I'll try to copy and paste that if it'll let me. Let me see if it does. No, it doesn't. But yeah, Darkwing, you got to put him right in there because, of course, of his appearance in the end credits, and the fact that his character is pretty much suited for it. As far as gargoyles go, like I said, you got to go with them right off the bat. You got to go with Goliath, Eliza, and Demona, in my opinion. Excuse me. As the prime characters, like the characters you can play right off the bat. As far as Darkwing goes, I think just like with Rescue Rangers, you get all the characters in there at once. Darkwing, Goslin, Negaduck, Morgana. I think you put in there all at once. That to me that helps fill out the roster a lot more. Next up, to me another show that I think should be in there right off the bat. And they teased it in the poster, obviously, with two of the characters basically being rivals from the show. But I think you got to go with gummy bears. Gummy bears has got to be in there, in my opinion. You got to add gummy bears. No doubt, in my opinion, that that's got to be a show you add. And and I think by adding it, you definitely help out in a big way. You basically help it out in a big way, in my opinion. Now it looks like I'm missing one or two, so um, let me save this guys for a second. I'm gonna go TDA. Oh, um, do that. I'm gonna save it just for a moment, guys. I'll go back to it. Don't worry. I'm gonna go back to it. I'm gonna go back to it. Let me see. I think I may have missed. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see. Hold on. I think. Yeah, I think I gotta go back and edit, guys. Hold on for a second. So hold on. Let me go back and edit, cause I think I had more pictures. I thought. Hold on. I think I had some more pictures. I may have to add some more. Let me see here. Did I miss any here? Or I forget to download some? Cause I thought I downloaded some. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go back and get one more. I think. And I think anybody watching this would probably know which one that is. You could pretty much see me typing it in right now, um, as as something that should be in the game as well. So it should be in the game, and that is of course going to be Tailspin. So we're going to download that to represent it, and then maybe for a secondary picture we'll go with this one, hopefully with no problem. Nope, that's a problem. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so we're gonna add these in as well, guys. So hold on for a sec while I do this. Because again, I thought I added these pictures. I guess I thought I did and I didn't. So we'll put those in. Okay. And we're going to submit. And we're going to head back there. So again, as we get rid of this little ad here. So again, and we turn off the ad. There we go. If it lets me. There we go. Okay, so anyway, to continue where I left off, Rescue Rangers should be one of the most obvious. All the characters should be playable right off the bat. Goggles, like I said, you got to go with Elisa, Goliath, and Demona as your playable characters there. Darkwing Duck, I think, falls in the same category as Rescue Rangers. All the characters, Darkwing, Goslin, Morgana, Negadoc, all at once. And now Gummy Bears, this is what's really interesting because the two characters from the show that they represented in that not fan fest, but that fight fest billboard at the end of the movie, the only two characters they showed were Sunny Gummy, and I can't, and I'm trying to think of that villain, that sorceress's name. That sorceress's name, what was it? It was what was that sorceress's name? Hold on for a second. Hold on. Let me type this in. Let's see. No. What's her name? I think I got it right here. Lady Bane. That's right, Lady Bane. They only had Lady Bane and Sunny representing the gummy bears. So to me, from a character's perspective, you got to go Sunny, Cubby, Duke Igthorn, and Lady Bane right off the bat. So you got to go with those four. from Gummy Bears, in my opinion. Then next up, of course, I'm going to go with Tailspin that I just brought up. And Tailspin, to me, they showed a lot of the characters there, almost, if you will, almost showed a lot of the characters. And I think honestly, you have to go with Kit. You got to go with Baloo. You got to go with Rebecca. And from a villain perspective, you got to go with Don Carnage. Those should be your first four out of the Tailspin show. Baloo, Rebecca, Kit, and Don Carnage, in my opinion. Then next up, another show that definitely should be right off the bat, and this would probably be the last one before I go DLC here. You got to go Aladdin. That's right, you got to go Aladdin. I think they did show Aladdin, in there, but yeah, you got to go the Aladdin series, and I think right off the bat you got to go Aladdin, you got to go Jasmine, you got to go Genie, and I think you got to go Abbas Maul for a villain if you want to round it out. So Aladdin, Jasmine, the Genie, and Abbas Maul to round it out. So that basically is the initial first six shows that with characters that should be playable right off the bat when you get the game. All the Rescue Rangers from Rescue Rangers, Goliath, Elisa Maza, and Demona from Goggles. Most of the characters from Darkwing Duck, Darkwing, Goslin, Negaduck, Morgana. Gummy Bears, you got to go with Sunny, Cubby, Duke Igthorn, Lady Bane. Tailspin, you got to go Baloo, Rebecca, Kit, and Don Carnage. And Aladdin, you got to go with Aladdin, Jasmine, um, the Genie, and Albus Maul. In my opinion, those are going to be the ones you go with right off the bat. And let me check anything here, see if anybody has commented. And I do apologize for the lag, guys, if you're not getting a smooth streaming. It says it's not receiving enough video right now, so I do apologize for that. If you guys are experiencing any bit of a lag, I do apologize. But anyway, those are the ones that should be in the game right from the start. Now, as far as future DLCs are concerned, what shows and characters should be DLC? Well, we're going to start off with some that we've already named, like with Gummy Bears. Okay, like I said, initially it's got to be Cubby, Sunny, Duke Igthorn, and Lady Bane. DLC wise, I think you got to go, in this my honest opinion, you got to go with Gusto, Gummy. You got to go with Ursa Barbic. You got to go with Toadworth, Toady. And I think to round that out, you should go with Calvin. You need to go. You need to go with Calvin as a character. I know people would say, "What about Kala?" Kala, you can put in there too. So let's put her in there. So there's no disagreements. So Gusto, Ursa, Toadworth, Calvin, and Kala should be your DLC from Gummy Bears. Those should be the DLC characters, in my opinion. Um, for Gargoyles, we're gonna bring them up. Gargoyles, I think you need to round out the group a little bit. So I think you need to have Brooklyn. You need to have Angela in there. You need to have Xanatos. And I think you should have what's his name? The Goliath clone. I can't think of his name right now because they did recently. NECA did recently put out a figure of him. So let me see if I can. I know it's something. It's something. A dialogue. A dialogue. Yeah, dialogue. I think should be in there as well. So for DLC from Gargoyles, like I said, you got to go Brooklyn, you got to go Angela, you got to go Xanatos, and you got to go Thylog, or Thaylog, I should say, as your DLC from Gargoyles. So DLC from Gargoyles to join the already in-game characters of Goliath, Elisa, Demona, um, basically, yeah, Goliath, Elisa, and Demona. Right off the bat, the DLC should be Brooklyn, Angela, Xanatos, and Thalog, in my opinion. Um, Next up for DLC, definitely in my opinion, you got to go with, once again, going to some established shows, you got to go with Aladdin. I think Aladdin should have in there, um, if you're gonna use the series, you need to go with basically Mechanicles as a villain, as a DLC villain. The Sultan, you want to throw him in there, and I think to round it up, you need to go with um, Eden, Genie's girlfriend, Eden. Put her in there, and I think you got to go with Iago as a tribute to Gilbert Gottfried. So to me, the DLC characters from Aladdin should be Mechanicles, should be the Sultan, should be Eden, and Iago, in my opinion. All right. As far as other DLCs that are concerned, let's go to Tailspin again. Let's round that out. And like I said, with Tailspin, you got to have Baloo, Rebecca, Kit, and Don Carnage. So for DLC coming from Tailspin or representing Tailspin, I think you should have Louie. I think you should have Shere Khan, and I think you should have Wildcat in there. And I think, believe it or not, you should have Molly. You should have Molly. But here's what you do with Molly, and you can add this as well as part of DLC for Kit. Give them alternating versions of themselves that you can play as. So with Molly as a DLC, you don't just get Molly from the show, from the original show, but you also get the Molly from DuckTales 2020, if you will. The same with Kit. As part of the DLC, because initially, if initially Kit's in the game right from the or right from the start, you're just going to play as Kit, the original OG. But with the DLC, you can add in as a bonus his alternate form from the DuckTales series. So to me, that should also be part of the DLC, along with the characters going in. Like I said, it should be Wildcat, it should be Shere Khan, it should be Louie, and it should be Molly with an alternate form, with an alteration or option to choose between the OG version and the DuckTale version. Along with the bonus option being downloaded in there as a DLC for Kit as well. Now, as far as shows that we haven't mentioned that are potentially could be looked at as DLC, well, we did mention. Well, we didn't get to Rescue Rangers yet, did we? So before we do that, let's talk about Rescue Rangers. Like I said, you got to have all the Rangers right off the bat with the game. As far as DLC goes, you got to go with a little bit of.
Chloe and Rennie went down the sand.
You got to go. So that was a commercial that just started up. I don't know why it did that. But like I said, as far as Rescue Rangers is concerned, DLC wise, I think you got to go with a bit of a villain theme a little bit. So I think Fat Cat and Nimno, obviously, you got to go with right off the bat, right there. And I know I'm saying right off the bat a lot. I do apologize, but I think Fat Cat and Nimno should be choices that you go with, in my opinion. They should be choices, in my opinion, that you go with as DLC villain wise. But I also think you should go with the obscureness as well. And I think what they should do is they should look to the pages of Boom Studios. And I think what they should do to kind of equal out the villain DLCs that you're going to get with Fat Cat and Nimno, I think you should add in Foxglove and Tammy. That's my opinion. The one shot characters, but they still have fans that love them, that got behind them, mostly with Foxglove. So I think with Nimno and Fat Cat being the DLC for Rangers villain wise, to even that out, give us Foxglove and Tammy to be DLC as well. And I guarantee you do that, and Rescue Ranger fans will love you for it, in my opinion. All right, so with those shows that we've already talked about, possibly having some DLC added to them as well to really expand the roster and everything. What other shows should be considered for, DLC, OG? In other words, original DLC that, oh, no, oh, hold on. Okay, nearly, nearly got all over myself there. Tongue tied, if you will. There we go. But anyway, what other shows though, besides the ones that are already in the game that'll probably get DLC, like what I've mentioned? What other shows that What other TDA Disney Afternoon shows could be legit, DLC, like be in the game for the first time via DLC? Well, those shows should be, in my opinion, the first one should be Goof Troop. Goof Troop, if they're not in the game initially right off the bat, they need to be, the show and its characters need to be in the game via DLC later on. And I think the characters that should be in the game via DLC right off the bat should be Goofy, Pete, PJ, Max, and you got to add Peg. Pistol, I'm not too sure of, but those five right there definitely should be in the game via DLC pack. You can dub it the Goof Troop pack, if you will. Another show, of course, I think should be considered for DLC. You got to go with Bonkers. You got to go Bonkers, if you will. Of course, you got to have Bonkers as a DLC character. Lucky Pakel should be in there as well, and I think Miranda Wright should also be part of that. So Lucky, Miranda, and Bonkers as your first initial three characters in the Bonkers DLC pack, as I would dub it. Then, for another DLC, I think you got to go Mighty Ducks. I think Mighty Ducks should be in there as a DLC. And I think you got to go Wild Wing. You got to go Nosedive. You got to go Mallory. And you got to go Tanya. You got to go with them as your first DLC characters from Mighty Ducks. Then, then, here's where it really gets interesting, if you will. Because one of the things, companies like to do with their fighting games as of late, especially if you're taking a cue from from Smash Brothers, in this case, one of the things they like to do is surprise you with who they're going to enter next, like who they're going to bring into the picture next. And sometimes it could be somebody you're hearing information about, because that information is getting leaked and you pretty much have a clue of it. And then sometimes it's just like right out of the blue, like, oh my god, I didn't expect that. Like, I think nobody expected Sora from Kingdom Hearts to be part of Smash Brothers, but yet here he is. So, what could Disney and whoever they get to do this game, should it be ever be done, you know, who should Disney put into that category of a Sora? Like a character or a show you wouldn't see in the Disney Afternoon Fight Fest game. Well, to me, there's one option. One option as a DLC that nobody would see coming, the Wuzzles. You gotta go the Wuzzles because a lot of people look at them as the precursor to what the Disney Afternoon is, pretty much starting things off. Even though they were mostly Saturday morning, they do have that Disney Afternoon vibe to them. So to me, they need to be one of those surprise, didn't see it coming DLC downloads, that would be added to the game, and you need to include all of the characters to really put it over. You need to include Bumbleline, Butterbear, Rhinoki, Hippopotamus, Hoppopotamus, I think, Hoppo, if you will, and what's the other? Musil or something. What's it? That's his name or something. You need to add them all basically to really put it over the top. It's like, oh my god, I didn't expect the Wuzzles to be part of this, but yet here they are. Another one that I think should follow suit on that should be the rebooted DuckTales, and basically what this should be is the reboot alternate pack, if you will. In other words, You don't just get, oh, no, not, well, what I'm trying to say is what you get with this pack is basically, like I mentioned with Kit and Molly, in that DLC deal, what you would get here is every single DLC alternate form of the Disney Afternoon characters that you can get, along with some of the other characters as well. Like, I think with the alternate forms being added in there, you should also allow them to download as DLC the new DuckTales version of Scrooge, Huey, Dewey, Louie, Webby. Basically the 2017 to 2020 DuckTale characters, as well as the new version of Gander D, Gizmo Duck. You know, just give them the whole shebang with that as a surprise, DLC that they wouldn't expect to be part of this, but yet here it is. So Wuzzles and the 2017 DuckTales universe, or Disney Afternoon Television universe, should be the surprise DLCs that nobody would expect in these. Kind of like I said, kind of like what they did with Sora with Smash Brothers. So those should be DLCs, basically ones that should be left for last, and because they would be the most unexpected, in my opinion. Excuse me. Now, let's take a look at what shows and characters should be considered for future DLC. In other words, these are characters from some of the shows already mentioned, represented by the shows, that should be considered for DLC. Not in other words, they should be talked about, considered, but maybe not made, if you know what I mean. So we're gonna go with Goof Troop, and of course the character out of that's got to be Pistol. I think Pistol and Roxanne from Goofy Movie, because Goofy Movie is pretty much Goof Troop the movie, they should be considered as future DLC, but not maybe put into the game. Next up, we're going to go back to Bonkers. Like I said, with Bonkers as a DLC that should be released, should be released in the future after the game is initially made and released. I said Bonkers as a DLC should have Bonkers, Lucky, and Miranda. I think from that same show, you should have characters like Fondier. You should have Sergeant Grading. You should have Jitters, and I think Chief Kanifki possibly considered as DLC characters uh, from the show as future DLC. Not saying they should be added in, but they should be considered. That's Fondier, Grading, Jitters, and Chief Kanifki should be considered. Now, from Mighty Ducks, like I said initially, Mighty Ducks should be a show that should be, basically, Mighty Ducks should be released as future DLC. And like I said, you should have Mallory, Wild Wing, Nosedive, and Tanya as your first initial four. Going back to Mighty Ducks, what should be considered for future DLC obviously is Grin, Duke Larange, and Phil Palmfeather, in my opinion, and Dragonis. Those should be the four considered for future DLC, but not put in it, like Tanya, Mallory, Wild Wing, and Nosedive would be as DLC that comes later after the game is out. So yeah, Duke Larange, Grin, Phil Palmfeather, and Dragonis as future as considerations for future DLC. Then, for future DLC or consideration for DLC, you need to have the original OG DuckTales considered. I know some people would say that should be future DLC, but in my opinion, if you really want to get people's attention on the game, especially with whatever DLC could really put it over the top. Again, I go back with the 2017 to 2020 DuckTales as that DLC, but I'm not ruling out the original OG DuckTales as DLC, but I will put it in a category of it should be considered. And I'm back to excellent condition here, guys, so I do apologize for any lag. But like I said, it should be considered as future DLC. So if they decide, hey, we want to release the OG DuckTales along with the 2017 to 2020 DuckTales as a DLC pack, together, side by side, they can do that. But I think, in my opinion, they should consider the OG DuckTales as a possible DLC, but maybe not. Then I think the other one should be Timon and Pumbaa because of their show. I think they should be at. I think they should be considered for additional DLC. So Timon and Pumbaa, along with the hyenas, I think those five characters out of that series should be considered. And then definitely got to go with considering Quack Pack in that category as well. But the only two out of that should be Donald and Daisy from Quack Pack. The Quack Pack versions of Donald and Daisy in the game, possibly alongside as alternate forms, optional alternate forms, their DuckTales 2017 to 2020 versions. So Donald and Daisy, the Quack Pack versions, should be the only ones considered for future DLC, but not touched. Which means, guys, we have one show that will not be added because of the disdain it's gotten from a lot of people, and of course, I'm talking about Snookums and Meat. Snookums and Meat should not be considered or even thought about to be added to the game. I mean, yeah, we saw Snookums and Meat on the billboard and everything that you see in the thumbnail, but the thing is, guys, they should not even be considered. Disney should not even look at this show and be like, yeah, let's put it in there. No. The negative reaction it's gotten for as long as its existence has been around, it would not be a good idea in my opinion. So the one show and characters that should not be added is Snookums and Meat and all the characters involved. So, with that said, we're going to wrap this up in a little bit. So, going over this before we do, all the Rescue Rangers, Goliath, Demona, Elisa, all the Darkwing Duck characters except for one, that being Launchpad, Cubby, Sunny, Duke Higthorn, Lady Bane, Baloo, Kit, Rebecca, Don Carnage, Aladdin, Jasmine, Genie, and Albus Maul. Then DLC wise, we should have Gusto, Ursa Barbic, Calvin and Kala, Brooklyn, Angela, Xanatos, and who else did I say? Is that all I said? Was Brooklyn, Angela, Xanatos, and Thalog. Here should have basically Eden. We should have Mechanicles, the Sultan, and Iago. Then here we should have Molly, along with an alternate version for her DuckTales, for the DuckTales version of her adult form, along with a alternate version for Kid to be added along with that. And we should have Wildcat. We should have Louie and Shere Khan. Then here we should have Fat Cat, Nimnol, and as a surprise we should have Foxglove and Tammy. We should have we should have from here Goofy, Max, PJ, Pete, and Peg. From here we should have Bonkers, Miranda, and Lucky. Here we should have Wild Wing, Nosedive, Tanya, and Mallory. Here we should have all the characters of the Wuzzles cast. Here we should have all the alternate forms that could be chosen as optional outfits and everything for already established characters in the game, along with some of the newer versions of the characters as well. Like basically like the new Genie. Basically Della Duck should be in this as well. The new Gander D. You get the idea. Those characters should be part of this as well. So that should be the big old pack on its own. Then here, for consideration, look at Pistol and Roxanne for consideration. Here you should have Fondier, Jitters A Dog, Chief Kanifki, and Sergeant Grading. Consideration, you should have Grin, Duke Larange, Phil Palmfeather, and Dragonis. Here you should consider most of the OG series of DuckTales. Timon and Pumbaa, along with the hyenas, should be considered. And then only the Quack Pack versions of Donald and Daisy should be considered, maybe as alternate outfits, forms for the characters to coincide with their DuckTales 2017 counterparts. And then, of course, the one that should be avoided at all costs, Snookums and Meat, because of the negative fan reaction it has. Now, with that said, with that said, let's take a look at what the rating should be. Now, as described in the parentheses, the first one shown should be the most likely. So the question is, out of these three, which one would be the most likely? Well, I can tell you right off the bat, it won't be E, even though that's right off, even though that's up there as first. And I can tell you, surprisingly, this will surprise you, it will not be T. Instead, it'll be E10. That's my opinion. That's what I think is going to happen. So I think that if this game, this Disney Afternoon Fight Fest, that they kind of teased, kind of used to take a shot at the Smash Brothers concept and all that, if it was to ever be made, then in my opinion, it will be given the E10 rating. That's what I feel. It won't be given E and it won't be given T. It'll be given E10 plus. So, anyway, though, guys, that's pretty much it for this Disney Fight Fest deal. Like I said, all the Rescue Rangers should be added right off the bat. Goliath, Demona, Elisa, right off the bat. All the Darkwing Duck characters, Goslin, Darkwing, Morgana, Cubby, Sunny, Lady Bane, Dugig Thorn, Baloo, Rebecca, Kit, Don Carnage, Aladdin, Jasmine, and Genie. DLC wise, we should have DLC wise, we need Ursa, Barbic, Gusto, Gummi, Calvin, and Kala. Here we have Thalog, Brooklyn, Xanatos, Angela. Here we have Eden, the Sultan, Mechanicles, and Iago. Here we have Molly, along with an alternate option for her grown-up form from DuckTales, along with an optional grown-up form for Kit to go along with that as a DLC. We should also have Wildcat. We should have Louie, Shere Khan. Here, Fat Cat, Nimno, and as a surprise, Tammy and Foxglove. Here we should have Goofy, Max, PJ, Pete, and Peg. Here we should have Bonkers, Lucky, Miranda. Here at Mighty Ducks we should have Nosedive, Wild Wing, Tanya, and Mallory. Here we should have all the Wuzzles, if you will, because that would be a surprise entrant, or surprise DLC. Here we should have all the alternate forms as optional forms to choose from as DLC from the 2017 to 2020 DuckTales Disney Afternoon universe, as well as new characters like Della Duck and such added in there as playable characters. Then for consideration of future DLC, we should have Pistol and Roxanne from Goof Troop, Fondier, Sergeant Grading, Chief Knifke, and Jitters a Dog from Bonkers. From Mighty Ducks, consideration should be Duke Larange, Grin, Phil Palmfeather, and Dragonis. Consideration, the entire OG DuckTales, maybe as its own pack or alternate forms. Consideration should be Timon, Pumbaa, and the hyenas from the series. And then from Quack Pack, we should only have the Quack Pack versions of Donald and Daisy, maybe alternate forms, outfits to put them in when you choose them to fight, along with the 2017-20 versions from DuckTales. The show that should not be put into the game, Snookums and Meat, should be avoided at all cost. And the rating I think it'll get, probably, if should it ever happen, will be E10 plus. But yeah, that's basically what I see happening here. Should this game be made? Let me know what your thoughts are on it. I mean, again, I know this got a lot of folks talking when this was pretty much teased in the end credits of what potentially could be. And believe you me, I think Isaac Carlson of Watso Videos said it best that if we ever had a game like this, if we ever had a game like this come out, yeah, yeah, people would be paying high dollar for it. There's no doubt. Like, take my money now deal. And you can't tell me that there aren't some studios thinking about doing it and getting in contact with Disney to make it happen. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here. I know it's late, like I said. It's almost 2 in the morning, Pacific time. But I just wanted to come on here, do this little tier maker of what potentially we could see as, shows and characters involved in a Fight Fest game based on the Disney afternoon. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below. Live chat during the premiere. Well, actually, you could have live chatted during the premiere, or during the live stream, I should say. But anyway, though, guys, thank you all for joining me late, and thank you to those watching later on after this live stream is over. Super thanks are enabled, guys. If you want to help me out there, it'd be greatly appreciated. Um, but yeah, give me your thoughts. What do you think about this? How do you feel about the choices, and what would you change? Like, what shows would be in the game from the start? What would be released as future DLC? What would be considered for DLC, and what should be avoided at all cost? And what do you think the rating would be for the game should it happen? Let me know what your thoughts are, guys. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you on this. And until next time, check out my Teespring store. Check me out at BW Rose's Discussions, on all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. Check me out at VENMO at BW Roses for content you can't get here on YouTube due to copyright. Also check me out at deviantart.com/BVW1979. Also check me out at Brian-Walmer-1, that's numeral 1, at fanfiction.net. And patreon.com/BW Roses with a $1, $3 tier. So until next time, guys, let me know what your thoughts are overall on this potentially happening. What would you change? What would you keep the same? And until then, I am out. Take care. God bless. Have a good night. And maybe the next time I do a live stream, it'll be with a new modem.